Hey guys, Fred and Sheila McCoy, Hatfield McCoy Museum, fredmccoy.com. We'll make a little video. One of our viewers had contacted Sheila and gave her a tip that would make a good video, and we feel it would too. And made some notes, didn't write them out, so it's going to be hard to read my writing.
It's okay.
We're going to go through it the best we can. Sheila's going to go through our big book, and she'll put you some Civil War records,
Okay.
some documents to prove what we're saying here.
Okay.
And what we're going to be talking about is Randall McCoy. Randall McCoy, Civil War P.O.W. Of course, Uriah McCoy, his brother-in-law, my great-great-grandfather was also taken prisoner of war at the same time Randall was. He was actually shot, so he was taken to the hospital, but in the end they both went to, they ended up in Camp Douglas. But let's talk about Randall McCoy. Let's talk about this victim that's been victimized from 1863, from the time Devil Anse deserted him in the heat of battle, to 1914 when he died.
Okay.
He lost a lot, but let's talk about what kind of fellow this was. Now remember, Preacher Ants Hatfield baptized Randall and Sarah McCoy, married Randall and Sarah McCoy, baptized them, baptized most of their children, married most of their children. Preacher Ants did to other people. Randall's nephew, my great-grandfather, Asa McCoy, married Preacher Ants' daughter, Nancy. So it was all, the Kentucky Hatfields and McCoys were all intertwined. We're all family and friends. Some of the West Virginia Hatfields and McCoys, as we've said before, during, and after the feud, never got involved. Randall McCoy, how did he come about? What happened here? Randall McCoy went into the Civil War, 1861. Now you got to remember, Randall McCoy was 14 years older than Devil Anse Hatfield. I'll probably get some of my math wrong here, but he was like 40 years old when he went into the Civil War. At that time, he had 9 children going into the Civil War. Life expectancy was 43 years old. On July the 7th, 1863, Randall McCoy was taken captive, P.O.W. Uriah McCoy was shot, taken P.O.W. Everybody that was in that unit that wasn't killed was taken P.O.W. First, he was sent to Camp Chase, Ohio. Now, Camp Chase, Ohio was a prisoner of war camp during the Civil War. And let's just talk a little bit, because I took down some notes about Camp Chase. It was one of the largest Confederate POW camps there was. Had a capacity of 4,000 POWs, and they exceeded it by thousands. Over 25,000 POWs over the time, or at one time or another. Over 2,200 people died as POWs there. And they died from food, shelter, medical. That was Camp Chase. He was taken prisoner July the 7th of 63. He was transferred, and they received him at Camp Chase, Ohio, on July the 20th of 63. He left Camp Chase July the 24th. So he was in Camp Chase for 4 days, already miserable conditions. And he was received in Camp Douglas, Illinois on August the 22nd of 63. Now, we got to remember, he was discharged after the Civil War was over.
Right.
He was discharged June the 16th of 65. That's all in our big book that Sheila will be posting at the end of the video.
Okay.
Now, what we want to talk about here is Camp Douglas. You know, in Camp Douglas was one of the most horrific Confederate POW camps there was. It was built for 6,000 Confederate soldiers And they had anywhere from 12,000 up. It was always doubled in capacity. Anybody that died at Camp Douglas, the Confederate soldiers, they didn't want them being buried inside Chicago city limits there at the time. They had to take them 7 miles outside of Chicago to bury them. And they was buried at a cemetery. I'll run up on it here in a minute. But when they was buried in a mass grave. There's over 6,000 Confederate soldiers buried at that cemetery. No Chicago cemetery would allow burial of any Confederate soldier. And they're buried it's called Oakwood Cemetery.
Okay. Good.
Oakwood. It's about 7 miles outside of where Camp Douglas was. Mass grave of over 6,000. Sheila will show you monuments and different things, a little bit about Camp Douglas.
I'll post them at the end of the video here.
Only building that's still standing there is the building that was used at the time for the hospital during the war. And it's still there, but that's the only building. Everything else has been turned into a park. And
wow. Didn't they say at one time that there were as many as 2 to 3 men in one bed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, said what was it? 1 out of 5 survived.
Something. I think it's something like that. Yeah.
1 out of 5. Guys, horrific conditions.
Terrible place.
You know, Randall McCoy more than likely had PSTD before there was PSTD. Imagine going through something like that. Imagine going 2 years. Your family doesn't know if you lived or died in the battle. They don't know you're alive. They don't know you're in a prisoner of war camp. Sarah, her children's at home trying to make it the best way they can. And they don't know if they're ever going to see Randall again or if he's been killed. Imagine, not only Randall going through this, imagine what Sarah, with 9 kids at the time, went through. And the children.
Yeah.
All this time, Devil Lance is back home, prospering. He's stealing. I don't want to make this about Devil Lance Hatfield.
That's right.
This is Randall McCoy. This is about Randall McCoy. We all know what Devil Lance was if you listen to our videos. And if you don't, or you don't want to believe that part of it, that's fine. That's your prerogative.
Sure.
You keep on believing what a hero he was, because he was anything but. And that had a big effect on Randall McCoy while he's sitting in this prisoner of war camp for 2 years.
Suffering.
Guys, you got to understand,
Suffering. Because they said, what was the name of it? 88 acres of heck?
88 acres of hell. But it was located on the Lake Michigan. Chicago there. Camp Douglas is located just off of Lake Michigan. I don't know, when I was a kid, we lived in Detroit for a while. Dad went up there like everybody, trying to work at these car factories and stuff. That was the jobs to go to at the time. And we tried it for a little bit, didn't work out. And but Detroit is cold.
Wow.
Now imagine Lake Michigan, coming off of Lake Michigan, that cold air. 2 winters. 2 winters. In Camp Douglas, he survived.
He's tough.
See, I'm cold-natured. I can't imagine. Can't imagine being like that. No covers, hardly any clothing, no food,
water,
no food, no medicine, no medical. You know, Did you really think that and it very well could have been that way on both sides. I'm not going to say that it wasn't. We've not researched the other side.
Okay.
But the Confederate soldiers may have treated the Union soldiers in the same way. They're prisoner of war's victims.
Yeah, it's possible.
But would you, in that time, would you rather feed prisoners of war, people that fought against you, or would you rather take that food and send it off and give it to the Union soldiers, to your men? And that's what happened. Half the people there died of TB, tuberculosis, starvation, pneumonia, diarrhea. I mean, it was just so many. They didn't have the proper vitamins, the proper food. They were dying from bad meat that they would give them. They were given substandard meat, and the meat would have been infected or bad. And what you want to say something?
I forget what it's called.
Dysteria? Yeah, right when you said that, I thought of the word. So, you know, a lot of people's never, everybody wants to celebrate a villain. The villain. Look at Batman. Oh, the Joker, Riddler, all these guys. That's everybody, you know. Superman, guys with kryptonite. Yeah. It's funny. Randall McCoy was a victim. He was a victim starting with the Civil War and going to fight for what he felt was right, and then going to a prisoner of war camp and suffering. Now, you know, there's been stories told, family folklore. You know how Sheila and I are about family folklore, because everybody has got family folklore. Sheila and I, we don't care much for family folklore. We like documents, documentation.
Actual, yeah.
We like evidence, physical evidence. There's not a lot of physical evidence in family folklore. But the family folklore with Randall McCoy was that while he was already a Christian. Him and Sarah, they already belonged to church growing up. And like I said, he's 40 years old when the Civil War started. But supposed to have really got even more religious. God, let me live through this. Let me see my family one more time. I'll be a good person. I'll do this. We've all been there. We've all done that. We've all had family issues, family health problems, family this or that. Lord, you know, when you're closest to God's when you're down on your knees.
That's right.
And sometimes He has to put us there to get our attention.
Exactly.
And they said Randall McCoy really, not that he wasn't already a religious man, but he really took his religion. That's all he had was him and God.
His faith.
That's all he had was his faith. Now, he was there for 2 years and made it when a lot of men didn't. We know 6,000 didn't, and they buried them in one mass grave together.
Wow.
Just stuck them on top of each other and buried them and covered them over, and that was it.
Good
That's
Lord.
what they got. You know, they didn't care if they lived or died.
Right.
The Union soldiers didn't care. If they died, that was just one less person they had to take care of. And you got to remember, this is the war between the states. War. Civil war. It may have been on American ground, but it was a war between this man and that man.
This neighbor and that neighbor.
Neighbors and brothers.
Family, yeah.
And we know that because a lot of people, Devil Anse Hatfield was a Confederate for the little bit of time he was there. Preacher Anse Hatfield, my great-great-grandfather, was Union on the Kentucky side. Randall McCoy was a Confederate. He lived on the Kentucky side, predominantly Union, but he chose to fight for the Confederacy. His brother, Asa Harmon McCoy, fought for the Union. Their brother, Samuel McCoy, Big Sam McCoy and Paris McCoy's father, fought for the Confederacy. I mean, it just goes. Sheila and I showed a grave the other day of Selkirk McCoy, West Virginia McCoy, traitor, murderer of 3 of his cousins, but he fought for the Confederacy. It made these people hard. It made these people, it was hard.
Yeah.
Now, again, he probably had PTSD before PTSD was ever invented. Peaceful, godly man. Randall McCoy was always a peaceful, godly person before the Civil War, even after the Civil War. Randall McCoy didn't come out and get revenge on Devil Anse or anybody else, the other 13 or 16 men that deserted. He didn't. That wasn't his goal. Was to spend time with his family, farm, and that was their business. They didn't timber. That's a myth.
Right.
They didn't law devil ants or devil ants law them because they got on their timber, he got on theirs. Randall McCoy was a farmer. He had character, he had morals,
He had courage.
and good integrity. He had integrity. You know, you can read these stories in these books if you want to. Mostly got started with the Hatfield, West Virginia Hatfield books way back. And that's why we say, guys, a lot of stuff's written into history, spoken into history. Look at the facts. Look at this person's life. Now, we're going to cover a story, or we have covered it. We just ain't put the video out. It may come out before this one or after. Randall McCoy had the opportunity many times to get revenge. Randall McCoy went with the posse to West Virginia. Randall McCoy was there. He knows what happened. In fact, you'll hear where he got ready to shoot a couple of them, including Wall, when they were taken prisoner. But they were prisoners. They were prisoners. Once they become prisoners, they didn't shoot. As long as they don't resist, as long as they don't fight, if they surrender, we don't shoot, we don't kill them. And he held to that. He didn't want to in the beginning, but he held to it. You got to imagine, this man lost 6 kids, lost his home, but he didn't do it. It takes guts. It takes guts to hold back, because a weak man would have went ahead and just shot these guys. Not him. He didn't do it. He believed in the justice system. Randall McCoy was exactly the opposite. The opposite.
Total opposites.
Of Devil Anse Hatfield. Totally the opposite of Devil Anse. He fought in the Civil War. He had courage. He stayed and fought. Now, Devil Anse run. He went home. Some people wrote into history and said his military record is ambiguous. He was given leave. He was going to have to shoot his uncle because he had deserted, and he didn't. Bull crap, people. Again, I don't want to make this video about Devil Anse Hatfield, but Randall McCoy was the opposite of Devil Anse Hatfield. And all through the years, you're going to hear where they took anything that Devil Anse or Cap or some of the West Virginia Hatfields did, and they tried to throw it towards the Kentucky McCoys, and especially Randall McCoy. No evidence of it. No evidence. And that's where you've got to go. You've got to go with the evidence. You know, reading here where it says about the Camp Douglas. Locked them in dungeons. Locked the men in dungeons. No food. No water.
Wow.
Hung the men by their thumbs. By their thumbs from the ceiling. And they hung there with their thumbs.
Imagine that.
Again, they starved to death. You can't. I can't emphasize it enough, and you can't think about it enough. Probably to made a pact with God. If He let him live, he'd be a good person. All this and that, and we thank Sheila and I, between Sarah, not just Sheila and I, many McCoys. Between his wife Sarah, between God, between his time in the Civil War, and then especially what happened to his 3 boys. You know, I think up to the 3 boys, I think he was still trying to do right. And he still done right even after they burnt the cabin and killed 2 more of his kids. Again, he got ready. He almost lost it. He got ready to kill a couple of them, but in the end, he didn't. Yeah. He didn't. I don't know. The last years of his life, of course, he spent running a ferry boat in Piketon. After they burnt Randall McCoy's house, his cabin, killed 2 more of his kids and beat his wife. Of course, Sarah died shortly after. You got to understand, Sarah died within a year or so after the beating. She died from the beating. So there wasn't just 3 killed that night, or 2 killed that night at the cabin. Calvin and Alifair was not the only 2 killed. Sarah was killed. Right. She just didn't die until later on.
Yeah.
Cora, his granddaughter, was killed.
Yeah.
She just didn't die
Right.
till sometime later
Right.
from the injuries and wounds and the
cold,
distress,
yeah.
the cold that took place that night, her out there in the woods in the snow. So that's at least four more that he lost. Like I said, a person called us, said, hey, you and Sheila ever thought about, or you and Fred, I think they talked to Sheila. You and Fred ever thought about doing a video on Randall McCoy and his time during the Civil War? No, we hadn't. We're so busy covering Devil Anse
Yeah.
and the myths that's come up with him and Cap over the years, people trying to make them into, and Jim Vance, make them into things that they're not, heroes that they're not, and victims that they're not, that we've overlooked. Actually telling the story of Randall, Sarah, Jim McCoy, Floyd McCoy, Big Sam McCoy, Samuel McCoy, Sam McCoy, his son, that's buried up there on the Deal Cemetery with them. There's so many of them. There's so much history that's overlooked and fails to realize that these guys were victims. Victims.
It's been downplayed.
This man, you know, at the cabin through the years, they wanted to say, Randall McCoy ran and hid. This is a Civil War veteran. This is a man that fought and killed people during the Civil War. Went to prisoner of war camp, stayed 2 years at the toughest camp that there was, and lived. He lived when younger men and stronger men were dying. Now, that's a will to live and get home to your family. Now, you've got a will to get home to your family that bad, but when it hits the fan, you want people to believe that this man ran and hid.
No, I don't believe that.
We know who ran and hid, and we know whose families first started that story, because that's not what the newspaper says. Newspaper of that time and other authors down there that's not Hatfields have wrote Randall McCoy come out of the cabin blaring both barrels, shot Johnsey, Cap. I think Calvin had done shot Cotton Top.
Cotton Top, yeah.
And then Randall had done shot Tom Chambers on the roof. 4 people shot that night. Randall shot 3 of them.
Yep.
But yet, Hatfields, West Virginia Hatfields say, oh, he ran and hid. But yet, in court testimony, Melvin says his grandpa saved him, got him out of the burning house. How could he get him out of the burning house if they're still out there shooting and carrying on? He'd done run them off. He'd done run out with the shotgun. They had left. He gets the rest of the kids out of the burning house. Guys, it was turmoil there. It was, what do you do? What do you do? You got 2 kids. Your car goes off the side of a bridge. Which kid do you go get first? Who do you rescue? This man's got 4 kids, 2 grandkids in there, a wife. Who do you get first? What do you do first? First, you take care of the enemy. First, you gotta stop the threat.
Yeah.
Stop the threat. The threat was the Hatfield gang, not the Wildcats. The Hatfield gang. Let's call them what they called them back in that day. The Jesse James gang, Cole Younger gang. These guys were the Hatfield gang, and they got that name from the Civil War. They got that name from looting and stealing and carrying on. Again, this is about Randall McCoy, and we just want you, when you think about Randall McCoy, maybe to have a different take on him. This man was a victim. This man was not, he didn't go on raids to West Virginia and burn people's houses. He didn't go on raids to West Virginia and kill women and children. Didn't do it.
He's a God-fearing person.
God-fearing man. And he was. And boys, I'm going to tell you, it's hard to, we're Christians. Sheila's a whole lot better Christian than I am. In fact, I'm ashamed to even say that I am, but I was born again and baptized when I was 16 years old, and I'm a sinner and a half. But I know my Lord and Savior, and I know what's right and wrong. And I don't know how, when you put yourself in that position, imagine, they said Devil Anse when Troy and Elias got killed up in Boomer, West Virginia. hauling moonshine, hauling whiskey. They got killed shooting at another man, and he's shooting back at them, and all three of them died. But they said it broke Devil Ance's heart to lose 2 of his children. Really? Imagine losing 6. Imagine losing your wife, your granddaughter, your 2 of your granddaughters. Sarah Elizabeth died. Rosanna died. Add all these people up that died during the. Jeff McCoy died. Asa Harmon, his brother, died. Imagine how this man must have felt. I'm not going to drag this video out. Not going to drag it out. I started to say it's going to be a short video, but when I say it's going to be a short video, Sheila, I've been noticing the video, she puts this little emoji up there, rolling his eyes or something.
Laughing.
So
this is not a short video,
how long
guys.
is it?
26 minutes long.
Guys, it's Fred. I'm going to let her do the closing. She will put a bunch of documents at the back of this video. Listen, if you will, go to Fred McCoy 40.
Yep.
Fred McCoy 40. That is text message, and I'm not even going to look at it, but I am. But that is from people that comments on our videos and tells us different things or sends us stuff. That's the way our phones do. I just forgot to turn it off before we
Mine's
came
on silent, so.
And I should have done mine, but
That's okay. That's all right.
Go to Fred, small letters,
all lowercase.
Lowercase, Fred McCoy 40. Once they get enough subscribers, that's my page. I've had it for years. I got 16 people on there, I believe.
17, I think.
17. Oh, wow. But if we get up to a good amount, then I'm going to open the comments on that page, and we're going to have debates, and we're going to do different things. We just can't do it on Sheila's page. Sheila likes to get along with everybody. She likes to, sometimes I push the envelope, but when I've got evidence to show and I can prove it, she allows it.
Yeah, but some of the responses are kind of mean, so I don't.
Well, that's because some people, when you can't accept the truth, you attack the messenger. You've never been a police officer. If you're a police officer and you're in court and you've got the case against the defendant, and a good lawyer can't prove him innocent or can't prove that he didn't do it, who's they attack? They attack the police officer. That's what you do. And that's what people does now. They can't take up for Devil Anse when there's proof he was a deserter. They can't take up for Devil Anse when he's a murderer. They can't say the man's 6'5" or 6 foot tall when he's 5'6". With proof. Hey guys, last thing in closing. In the back of me here is some valued treasures. One of the most valuable things in the Hatfield and McCoy Museum.
No, it's not.
This is the first one. That's the second one. This is the third one. If you'll notice here, it says SM, SM, and SM. That is Sheila's new hobby. Sheila has taken up painting. There's nothing Sheila. She makes her own candles, Hatfield and McCoy candles. She does everything. And this is her newest hobby, and that's her first painting ever.
Yeah.
And
it's very relaxing. I enjoy doing it.
So I'm proud of her paintings. That's the reason I wanted to stand here, so I can have her paintings in the background. And then I almost forgot to tell while I was standing here for it to show these paintings off. All right, she'll do the closing.
Love you.
Love you, babe.
Please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.